folks. Welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch today. We're back at talking about food, which we have been a lot lately, but this is critically important. And today I'm going to talk to you about some things that you may not be aware of, or at least you've kind of forgotten about it possibly. It's not been forefront in the news for a while. But let me tell you that some of this stuff that we're going to talk about today, you need to hear this because it is quite a possibility that all of this food shortage and crisis and increase of food is being orchestrated to lead us down a particular path. And I want to show you what one of those paths just might be with some of the information I have for you today. Before we get started, of course, we're talking about food, and you should be stocking up on food. And your primary things should be, canned goods, dry goods, things like that, and then also gardening. But along the way, it doesn't hurt to have at least a little bit of emergency freeze-dried food. This is the kind of stuff that you set it on the shelf and you don't have to worry about it. It'll last for 25, 30 years. It's really easy to prepare it. It's just hot water. It's really good in an immediate emergency when you just don't have the time and the stress levels are high to worry about preparing an actual meal, because we need that energy. When things get bad and stress levels, skyrocket, that's when we need the energy the most. And so in those immediate SHTF times, emergency food does have a place because it relieves you of the duties of trying to figure out how to prepare a meal and dirty all the utensils and things to do that. It's just hot water and you go. So if you're interested in that, you can go to preparewithtravis.com, or you can find a link down the description below. With a company that I've partnered with, My Patriot Supply. They make some excellent quality stuff, but the big deal is that their prices are some of the lowest in the country. This is the largest American made emergency food supply company, and they're preppers just like us. They're very much politically aligned and socially aligned with many of you. I mean, that's how they started the company. So go to preparewithtravis.com if you're interested in that kind of stuff. There's plenty there to find, and they have some good deals still. So we want to talk about this food, and we've been talking about food for a while. We've been pointing out all the shortages and all the big cracks that just keep getting thrown at the system. I mean, it's just one right after another, building, factories burning and entire countries banning exports, and droughts and shortages of fuel and shortages of fertilizer. It's just on and on. And a lot of people are wondering why. Why is all this happening? Because how is it that just a year or 2 years or even 3 years ago, we produced more food than we needed? I mean, you can go back and find articles and news reports going back several years of how Americans throw away 40% of the food that we make because we have so much. We give it away, we send it all over the world, and we're all big and fat. We're the fattest nation on the planet. And even after all that, we still end up wasting 40% of the food that we make. I mean, how did we go from that, of feeding a good part of the world, feeding ourselves to where we're all fat, giving it away, and pricing it super cheap to the point that, and then throwing it away, a bunch of it away, to the point that we may not have enough food to survive. We may not have enough food to at least live a decent, normal life. I mean, will we be falling over dead in the streets? Maybe not. But we may not be much like a first world country in a couple of years if this continues. So the question is how did this all happen, and why does this happen? Well, the how is all kinds of different answers. There is no one answer to the how, but the why very well could be to direct us down a path to where they have more absolute control over our food. When they can control the food, then they can control the masses. And the way it is now, it's a little hard for the people in power to control all of the food, okay? And so they want to get us down that path. And they want to get us down that path because it's healthy for the environment, because they claim that they can feed the whole country, the whole world, and in poverty. And they don't tell you that their plan in ending poverty is eliminating a large portion of the American population, or the human population, global population, because if they don't have to feed as many people, then it's a lot easier to feed the ones that are left. They don't tell you all that, but A lot of these shortages that we're seeing right now could very well be done to put us in a place of desperation so that they can unveil some new solution, and we will be desperate to take it because there really isn't any other option. Because if they had unveiled this 3 or 4 years ago, which they have tried, most people would laugh at it. It's novel, but it's a joke, and they don't do it. But when people are desperate, they will accept things that they never would have accepted before. And what I'm talking about is lab created food. Now, I've talked about this at length in a few videos a year or so ago, probably a year and a half ago. And then there's another YouTube channel that talks about this quite extensively, and that's Ice Age Farmer. He puts out some excellent quality stuff, but I want to kind of get you up to date here on what very well could be going on. Here's a front cover of the Economist magazine. If you don't know what the Economist magazine is, you should look into it. It is kind of the elitists' economic magazine. This thing's been around for a very, very, very long time, and it's owned and ran by some of the world's most powerful families on the planet. I mean, and it's kind of known that whatever the Economist says, that's kind of the way things kind of go. So here's their newest front cover, that there's a food catastrophe coming. You know, there's a big collapse of our food supply system, and this is a global magazine, so it's not just talking about the United States or Great Britain. It's talking about the world. There's a food catastrophe coming, probably because it's planned, but it's still coming. And what's the solution to that? Well, sometimes they say the quiet part out loud. And in the news, the Daily Mail had this article here. Now, this guy here, most of you probably don't know who he is. I didn't know who he was, so I had to look him up. And he's a journalist and an author and an activist. But he's saying the quiet part out loud. And why would they put his picture in an article and everything if he was a nobody? Because he kind of is a nobody. It's because of what he's saying. They want this to be known, that the only way to save the planet, the only way to save all this food catastrophe stuff, is to end farming. We need to stop farming. Okay, stop all this traditional type farming, your little homesteads and stuff where you grow your own food, raise your chickens and your sheep and your cows and your pigs and all that kind of stuff. We got to stop that, and we have to depend upon corporations and the government to create food out of nowhere. This is something that some of you may roll your eyes to. Some of you may say this is a long way off, but I'm going to have to disagree with you and tell you it's not a long way off, and this isn't some crazy scheme. This is very, very real. This has been going on for several years now. You can go back a decade or more, and they have been talking about lab-created food. And we already are seeing some things that are kind of somewhat lab-created, but we're talking completely grown out of a beaker, test tube, or whatever in a lab. We're not talking about taking parts of a plant and other ingredients and kind of putting them together. We're talking completely growing this in a laboratory. There's been a lot of money thrown into this over the last few years, and it's kind of interesting that this has been building up right before the time that the food systems start to collapse. Kind of like how Bill Gates just recently announced that they have a company creating synthetic breast milk right as there's a shortage of baby formula. You know, kind of like that. So we're gonna have a shortage of food, and the prices of food are going to be skyrocketed. But don't worry, because we've got lab created food on the way. Now, just to kind of set things straight with you folks, the term lab-created food is no longer accepted. Okay, here's an article here talking about that we shouldn't call it lab-created food. We should call it cultivated meat. So when you see the word cultivated food or cultivated meat, that means lab-created. We're not talking about, like, you know, when my wife goes and makes, kefir, that's cultivated, cultured and cultivated food. Or when you cultivate your garden, that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about creating it synthetically out of chemicals and different various compounds that are not animal and plant. It's all synthetic, and they're creating it in a lab. And you don't know how it's made. It's some kind of abomination. In fact, I don't say that really that jokingly. There's been articles going back several years where they are actually using fecal matter and rats DNA and things like that to create this lab created food. So it's definitely an abomination. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of money being thrown into this. Okay, so why is this happening now? Well, it's quite interesting. When I was doing a little research for this, I started finding several articles, and some of these articles were going back a decade. This is the weird thing. Some of these articles were several, at least 3 or 4 years old, 2017, some of them almost back to 2013, where they were saying that they believed that 2022 was the year for lab-created food, or cultured meat. This was the year that cultured meat would start being available. According to what I have researched, it is now in the FDA approval. They're kind of their final stages of approving cultured lab-grown meat for the public. But there's tons of money being dumped into this. We're talking big money, and powerful people are investing into this. And why would they do this? Do they really care that much about the planet? I mean, that's what they tell us, is that they just care so much about the planet. No, they care about controlling your food. They hate the fact that we're doing anything naturally, which, eating beef or, eating a chicken that you grow in your backyard, that's pretty natural, not created in a sterile lab. But they want the control. But there's another aspect that a lot of people don't get on, and I can't prove this, okay? This is my opinion. I believe that they also want to do it because these people, they think they're God. I mean, at least the people at the top tier. That's what they think. The Davos group, the World Economic Forum people, the United Nations leaders and stuff. They think that they're gods. They want to be that level. And they know that if they can have the control of actually creating out of nothing our food, then that's just one more notch in their belt of being godlike beings. And I don't know, some of you may think I'm getting a little off on this, but here's an article here from the New Statesman. We invented the cow 10,000 years ago. We invented the cow. Okay? We invented the cow, and now it's time for us to invent the next food. That's sounds godlike mentality there. This is not new, and it's not going away, folks. And this is another reason why prepping can't just be stocking up on stuff. Because if you stocked up on food enough for a year or two, and things kind of collapse, and you've got food to eat for a year or two, and then you come out of that for after a year or two, and things start to kind of at least somewhat seem like it's normal, except it's not normal. There's no more beef. There's no more, chicken. There's no more, things like that. It's all lab grown. And you don't want to go that way. So the only way, you can't stock up on canned food for the rest of your life, but you can become more and more self-sufficient to where you don't have to buy that kind of food. You don't have to go down that direction. Without going into more detail, it's going to make a much longer video. This is really part of this, these strategic initiatives that they're doing from the United Nations and the Agenda 2030 and the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum. It's all part of it. They want to control land. They want to control agriculture. They want to get you off the land and in the cities, and they want to grow and create everything. That's why we're seeing how, cattle is horrible. Cattle should end. We should get rid of cows. We're seeing prices of feed for cows just skyrocketing, and if it continues this way, we'll continue to see the trend that we're already seeing, where they're euthanizing or slaughtering large amounts of cattle because they can't afford to keep it. So it's making it easier and easier to move away from these kind of meats and stuff, and people out of desperation will buy this other stuff. And it's uncertain now if you'll even know what is lab created versus what's naturally grown, because there's debates on whether they should even label it or not. But the fact is this is coming at us, folks. And I think that a lot of this controlling of our food supply right now and the destruction of our food supply systems is a part of this. And it's not just lab created. The other thing is eating bugs. They want everyone to eat bugs. That's the alternative. Well, you don't want to eat lab created food? Fine, then eat some bugs. Eat some bugs. Eating plant-based or insect-based meals, and then lab-grown meals could save the planet. That's what they're telling us. This is how we're going to save the planet, is by eating bugs and by eating lab-grown meat. The United Nations has been talking about this for years. This isn't anything new. One of the things that they do, and I've got some clips of a video to show you here in just a second, so stick with me here, is they keep pushing this narrative that and all of these World Economic Forum videos, United Nations videos, and any of their little, drummer boys out there trying to push this narrative, they always use this argument that, well, 1 billion or 2 people on the planet already eat bugs. That's part of their culture. And if they eat it, I mean, they live, they're fine. If they're eating it, why can't we? Do you know who are the people on this planet that eat bugs as a decent part of their diet? Maybe not all of them, but the vast majority of the areas of this planet that eat bugs on a regular basis are the poorest parts of the planet. That's why they eat bugs. They eat bugs because they can't afford to eat anything else, and they're trying to stay alive. Is that what we're trying to do for our society, is bring us down to that third world, extreme poverty level? I mean, a lot of people would say yes. Here's an article here talking about eating bugs. In the article, it talks about the top countries on the planet that eats bugs. Okay, these are the top 9 or 10 countries that eat bugs. The Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic of Cameroon, or Central African Republic, the Cameroon, or Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, South Africa. These are the poorest spots on the whole planet. And other than Africa, the other dominant area that eats bugs is Southeast Asia. Why are we trying to pattern our society after the poorest places on the planet? It's a little silly to me. I want to show you this video here, and I'm going to break this up. This is from a YouTube channel and website called The Verge. It doesn't take too long to figure out The Verge. It's owned by Vox Media, which is an extremely left-slanted newer type of media out there. But The Verge is basically, from what I can tell from looking through their playlists and their articles, is they're just a mouthpiece for this fourth industrial revolution. They focus on technologies a lot, and they're pushing a lot of this Great Reset, fourth industrial revolution technologies. And so here's an article where they're pushing this bugs, okay? And I'm going to break it up and chop it up, but start off with, this is their little, there's a place in Texas. It's one of the biggest, newest places in the United States that's growing bugs that are edible. And it's talking about how not only is it cool that they're using bugs and that you're eating bugs, is that they're doing it all with robotics. And it's crazy when you watch the full video. They're talking about the people that run this place like they're real farmers. They call the bugs their livestock and the farming. It's absolutely insane. But watch this here.
Cricket snacks. They started out like this and went on a wild ride. Born on a robotic cricket farm in Texas, raised in a big tub, frozen into cricket bricks.
So they're farming with robots, okay? And you're going to make lots of bugs for people to eat. Here's the clip here where they're talking about how, well, everyone else in the world is doing it. Well, not everyone, but at least the people in the really poor countries, they're eating bugs, so why can't we?
Eating insects is commonplace in lots of the world. It's just never caught on in the U.S. Around the world, 2 billion people eat insects as part of their regular diet.
Now, on to the good part. At the end of this video, not at the end, but about halfway through this video, it talks about this company that's here in the United States that's pushing the eating bug thing, and they're making millions and millions of bugs a day to sell to people to eat. And the company got started because of a grant or something that they won. And I just want you to, I'm going to play it right here while I talk. Because all they're saying here is talking about the founder of the company and how he started it. And then that guy right in there, I think it should show, that's the guy that presented him with this. And if you watch here in just a minute, it's going to have that name there in the background. That's right, the Clinton Foundation. They supported all this. They're pushing all this, okay? This is, you cannot tell me that there's so much push from the UN, the World Economic Forum, the Clinton Foundation, and many others. I mean, this is a rabbit trail that goes really deep when it comes to the lab-created food and eating the insects, and think that it doesn't mean anything. They're not putting all of their lots and lots of money. We're talking billions and billions of dollars are being put into both of these things, lab created and insects. They're not doing that for nothing. They're doing it because they're going to make you eat it. If you're not self-sufficient, your choices are going to be to starve or to eat their bugs or to eat their abomination of meat that they're growing in a lab. So folks, you better get yourselves as self-sufficient as possible, growing your own food or creating communities where you can trade amongst yourselves for the people that grow in food. Because I'm telling you, this is the path that we're headed down. This isn't some crazy, sci-fi type of thing. This is where we're headed. And these food crisis, shortages, catastrophes that we're having right now, I personally believe they're being orchestrated to reduce the population and to get us to the place to where people are so desperate, then this is what they will take. They'll have to, because it's all that's left to eat. Folks, get your houses in order. Prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.